Welcome everybody to the Sports 2.0 show. We are the future in sports takes here. Tonight we have a very special show, an awesome show planned out for you guys. We appreciate you guys flipping over to us right after the selection show. This is our selection show special. We are pumped about it tonight. I'm Erik Neff. I'm from Sports 2.0. I'll have with me Rodney and Mychal. He's from Noop Sports, from the radio. You've heard him everywhere. And we've also got Mychal Hunter from ACC Basketball Report as well as Sports 2.0. And we're going to chat a little bit of basketball tonight. We're going to talk about the bracket. We're going to talk about the regions. We're going to talk about some of our favorites and who we like to maybe make the Final Four and things of that nature. So let's get it rolling, guys. Let's get right into it. Now that we've seen the bracket, we've been able to dig in just a little bit. What region's tough? What regions maybe got the easiest path? And did it change your favorite at all? Did it change who we think's gonna take the national title home? Did seeing this bracket do anything like that for you guys? Go ahead, Rodney.
Well, first of all, man, I love the NCAA tournament. I am so excited. I mean, and we need this. Like, we deserve this. Like, this is after last year. I mean, last year, how depressed were we in March last year? I mean, it was brutal. Just absolutely brutal.
It was absolutely brutal.
No NCAA tournament, no selection show Sunday. Now, unfortunately, I'm just now seeing the show. I have seen the bracket, kind of studied it a little bit. I had youth baseball practice, but I love the show. Like, it's like one of the most exciting shows you'll ever watch. I don't know, like, am I that much of a geek? But anyways, like, I love this bracket. And my first look is the West looks hard. The West really looks like it's going to be a little difficult to navigate. Here in Illinois, a lot of people saying the Fighting Illini have a tough second round. I don't know as if I agree. I mean, looking at those 8-9s, there's some really good 8-9 games there. And then, Oklahoma State obviously sits in the third round, and those are two of the hottest teams in college basketball. So just kind of my initial thoughts, and then I got to go with my Kansas Jayhawks. They're not very good, but they get an Eastern Washington team. And then what I find interesting is I could very likely see a Wichita State Kansas second round game. I really could. I could see Wichita beating Drake, beating USC, and then getting the Jayhawks, which obviously would be a huge rivalry game. So just kind of my initial thoughts. I know Michael's got some ACC thoughts that he wants to get to.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the brackets and which region, I think the South is particularly tough. I mean, you got some real defensive-minded teams there with Baylor, Wisconsin, certainly Purdue, Texas Tech. And then you got some teams that can really score, and Arkansas, Ohio State is one of the best offensive teams in the nation. Obviously, Villanova, a little bit of a tough road because Colin Gillespie's obviously out. Justin Moore is kind of dinged up with a bad ankle. I think the East is really weak. I think it sets up perfectly for Alabama. I think we've seen that Michigan is not a great team without Isaiah Livers. He's going to be out indefinitely with a foot injury. So, and that really, inhibits Michigan's, I think, their ceiling. And then I just, Florida State and Alabama, this bracket lays out beautifully for them. As far as I don't really understand some of the logic that went into this bracket. I do like the bracket. But Syracuse getting in, I'm not a big fan. Wichita State getting in over Louisville was something that was a little bit weird to me. And then you got a Georgia Tech team that is, the fourth seed in the ACC, and they win the ACC tournament, and they're a 9 seed. But Clemson gets a 7. North Carolina, who's the 6th seed in the tournament, gets an 8. Gets an 8. I just don't know. Georgia Tech would have been better off losing in the ACC tournament and getting a 10 seed and playing UConn.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
right.
Yep.
So, I think it's going to be very interesting. I really like the Arkansas-Colgate matchup. Colgate's a team that can really score some points. Arkansas is hot and cold. They're a little bit hot right now, but I think that's going to be a great first-round game, and I'm really excited to watch UCLA and Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State's beaten 3 of the number 1 seeds in this tournament, and they're in the first 4 in Dayton. So, it's interesting. The bracket's very interesting.
Well, I got to say, you guys stole a lot of my thoughts there. I agree with a lot of what I just heard. The West looks like the region to beat to me. The South looks tough. The Midwest looks tough. And the East looks weak. Kind kind of focusing on the Big Ten teams for a minute, Michigan looked weak. As you said, Livers is going to be out, and that does set up perfectly for Alabama. And then another team to watch in that same region, the state, Florida State. I believe you guys just played them, actually, your Georgia Tech team. So I keep an eye on that Florida State team at that 4 seed. In the first round, who do they got in the first round? They got the North Carolina Greensboro, so they should easily come through the first round. I actually look for Georgetown to beat Colorado right above them, and for them to meet Georgetown in the second round. And I think Florida State can make it out of that as well, and then match up against Michigan pretty well. So that's where I'm at with it as well. The West is tough. The East is not. So
don't sleep on Greensboro. They've got a kid named Isaiah Miller, who is, I think, the 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in the SoCon, and I believe he's the 2-time Player of the Year in the SoCon as well. So they've got some talent. Wes Miller can coach, so don't sleep on Greensboro.
Yeah, I like them as well, and I think that's a tough matchup for Florida State, as you mentioned. ACC didn't really get a lot of favors.
No,
and I know that's kind of your forte is the ACC, and I think you're right. As I digest the bracket a little bit more, a little bit surprised. I think you mentioned, why Syracuse even got in, plus got in and do not have to play the play-in game. Right. So a little bit surprising there. We always see questions with the committee and kind of the what went on here. I wouldn't really say this year necessarily there's not a lot of teams that I think maybe deserved it. I mean, obviously here locally, I'd love to see the Billikens of St. Louis get in, but they kind of made their own bed here with a couple struggles late in the year. And then obviously, their big struggle was COVID. They missed a lot of time with COVID, and that's not necessarily their fault, but it just is what it is. So I wouldn't say that there was big snubs necessarily. They're a team that I really think should get in. And overall, I still think the bracket's pretty fun. Obviously, it's really fun. I still think it's pretty solid. Yep. So no real complaints, just kind of some question marks throughout the bracket.
Yeah, I agree.
I think
I look at a team like Memphis.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I look at a team like Memphis that maybe they deserve to be in, but they didn't really do anything to really convince you during the season that they should absolutely be in. They got a nice Ken Palm number, but they needed to beat Houston one of those last 2 times they played, and unfortunately lost it on a buzzer beater, and then they didn't really hang with them in the tournament. So I don't really have any big grievances, but I mean Syracuse getting in is just
what do they got? Yeah. It's the Boeheim special, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what Syracuse has to do to be left out of the tournament, but 1-7 against quad 1 teams on the season just isn't, it isn't impressive.
11 and got an 11, not a play-in game, but an 11. So it's very confusing. I think if I'm a team like Michigan State and I see Syracuse where they're at, I'm pretty upset that I have to play a play-in game. Yep. And I think if I'm a team like Louisville, I'm pretty upset at Syracuse making it and getting an 11. So I think there's several teams that probably feel the same way we do about Syracuse catching that 11 and at least not just getting a play-in game. So another thing
Erik, I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist here, but I mean, do you think the committee ever, hey, let's spice these Thursday games up a little bit? We're kind of trying a new format here. Let's spice these. I mean, you got 2 really good programs. I know UCLA stinks the last several years, but Michigan State, UCLA in the play-in game. I mean, that's going to draw eyeballs out. Now, I mean, I don't know if you need to draw eyeballs for the NCAA tournament, but I don't know. I guess I look at Michigan State, UCLA as like, dang, they're going to play on the Thursday of the NCAA tournament in a play-in game. That's kind of cool. I mean, I don't mind it in that regard, but if I'm Tom Izzo, I probably, what do we have to do to be an automatic team? But if you look at, I mean, they can beat UCLA and then they can beat BYU. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if along the same lines, if I am Tom Izzo, it's like, okay, we do have a path to a couple wins here and then take our chances with the Longhorns in the second round. So it'll be interesting. But, I guess the Michigan State probably made, I keep using the term made their bed, but they they really struggled in that loss to Ohio State. I mean, they really struggled in that. Was it Ohio State? Am I right? No, Maryland. Excuse
Maryland,
me.
yeah.
They really struggled in that loss to Maryland. They got off to a good start and really struggled. So, if the committee looked at that, they said, this team does not have a great record. They did get hot, but I don't know. I don't know how good they are. And I know they, beat Illinois, so that's a huge win. But it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State
Absolutely.
is a team that could get destroyed in that play-in game by UCLA, or they could run to the Elite Eight. They're very hot and cold and Jekyll and Hyde. So
yep, I agree.
Oh, here we got a comment from viewers. Did Oklahoma State get a fair draw? What do you guys think? Oklahoma State sitting at the 4 seed, I believe. Yeah, playing Liberty in the first round.
Yeah, and I'll talk first about this one. Obviously being a kind of a Big 12 guy, I like Michigan or Oklahoma State because they're going to have probably the best player on the floor almost every time they play. So That's going to be interesting. Liberty, I mean, Michael probably knows a little bit more about Liberty than I do. I like their draw. I think a 4 was probably their ceiling, to be honest with you. With the body of work in the Big 12, I think a 4 was probably right. I wouldn't have been surprised if they were a 5. I just don't see them moving ahead of Texas, West Virginia, who obviously are in the same conference as they are, and then Kansas, another Big 12 team, and then Arkansas. I just don't see them being a team that should have been seeded ahead despite, getting to the conference championship. But keep in mind, they got to the conference championship because Kansas just didn't play. So I'm not opposed to where Oklahoma State's at. I think it's a pretty fair draw. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that they may have to face Tennessee in the second round. Tennessee has the ability to beat anybody in the country, and it's also very interesting that they're in the same bracket as West Virginia, who West Virginia gets the 3, Oklahoma State gets the 4, and Oklahoma State's beaten West Virginia twice in the last week. So it's very interesting. Like you said, Cade Cunningham, best player on the floor. I think Mike Boynton's tremendously underrated as a coach. But I mean, if you're projecting out, Tennessee, they can be very good. They can be very bad. I mean, I certainly wouldn't put it past them to lose to Oregon State. Oregon State's kind of on a heater right now, but Oklahoma State has a pretty nice path right to the Sweet 16, I think, right now. So Liberty, I think we're all on the same page as far as everybody roots against Liberty because of their political stance. But I don't think Oklahoma State's going to have much trouble with Liberty in the first round. It'll be interesting in the second round if they get to play Tennessee, though.
Well, and real quick on that, I mean, I guess the only thing I see, Michael, is I know they beat West Virginia head-to-head, but, I think a lot of times they go right down the conference standings for the most part. I mean, Baylor was 1, Kansas, Texas, West Virginia finished ahead of Oklahoma State. Now, albeit it was a half game, and you can't necessarily take that for gold because, you got Baylor played 14 games and Kansas played 18 games in the same conference. I mean, that's not, not equivalent, but that's why I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I guess since you said they beat them twice in a week, I kind of thought, well, maybe they could be a 3, but again, I don't know as if the 3-4 necessarily makes that big a difference. I guess it does because you're playing Illinois instead of Houston. In the Sweet 16. But now let's talk real quick about that. Oklahoma State, Illinois, possibly in the Sweet 16. Not only 2 of the hottest teams in the country, but obviously friends, guys that know how to coach against each other. So that should be a fun one if we get there. 2 wins for both teams, and we'll get a fun Sweet 16 game.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I mean, Cunningham versus DeSumo is I mean, that's 2 of the best players in the nation.
So, that's a big time matchup. I think after not having a March last year, after not having, everything we missed last year, we deserve an AO versus Cade. So we deserve that matchup. The country deserves the matchup. We all deserve the matchup. We definitely deserve that matchup. So I don't mind Oklahoma State. Yeah, so we probably won't get it. Exactly. And my first thought with Oklahoma State at the 4 is, man, Illinois is going to have to play them really quick. So, or, just after a couple of games. So that's definitely a scary game whenever you get a player of that caliber. At the same time, it's going to be a scary matchup for them because they're going up against another player of that caliber. So, but yeah, we definitely deserve that matchup, and that's definitely one I'm looking forward to. I really hope it does come down to Oklahoma State and Illinois. And honestly, on the bottom half of that bracket, I truly believe Houston's going to get snuffed out by San Diego State. and we end up with possibly an Elite Eight matchup with San Diego State and Illinois. So that would be fantastic.
That's
or
bold.
no, that would be. Yeah,
That's
well,
bold.
yes, it would be Elite Eight. It'd be bold, but I like the way San Diego State played the game this year. I like their pace. I really like San Diego State this year. So,
okay, that's bold. I hope it earns you some winnings in the bracket contest there.
For sure.
As do I. You got to be different somehow. You can't just make you can't go obvious all the way through. You got to be different to win.
Yeah.
Now, as we go through this process and as we get to the Final Four and we crown a national champion, how much do you think this season? How big of an asterisk is next to the national champion this year? Is there an asterisk? With everything that's went on, with teams not being able to finish schedules and different teams possibly making it, is there an asterisk this year? I'm asking because I'm an Illinois fan, and I don't want there to be an asterisk in case we win.
Michael, go ahead.
I guess it depends on who's affected in the tournament. You know what I mean? If Gonzaga gets a case, if somebody pops positive on the Bulldogs roster and they're unable to continue, then yeah, Gonzaga is head and shoulders above anybody else in the nation, I think, right now. And I don't believe it's really close. Baylor, even before they went on COVID pause, they struggled in some first halves of some games that they really shouldn't have struggled in. They were showing cracks in that foundation prior to their COVID pause. If Baylor pops positive and they're unable to continue, I think it really depends on you want the best teams to play, and you need the best teams to lose in order to crown a proper champion. You don't want to see Gonzaga get out of the tournament just because somebody popped positive for COVID. You'd like to actually see them play and actually lose a game. So I don't think there's an asterisk because everybody's really playing under the same. There's a piano hanging over everybody's head in this tournament, and anybody can pop positive at any time. We saw that with Kansas, Virginia, Duke, just in the last few days. Mm-hmm. So there's potential for an asterisk depending on who is knocked out by COVID.
Yeah, Michael, that's why I let you go first, because I had a feeling you were going to answer the same way I did. And as a Kansas fan, of course, I don't think they're a national champion, but if they don't get a chance to play, of course there's an asterisk on it. Right, exactly. And we're all going to feel that way if it's our team or the team that we put in the bracket or whatever. And and I think that's the wild card this year. You put your bracket contest together or whatever. It's like you can't predict who's going to get COVID and not be able to play. So I think that's just another spin to it that's going to make things difficult this year. So I'll answer like Michael. Right now, there's not an asterisk, but I think there's a possibility there still could be. But it's still going to be a national champion, and for that fan base, it's still going to be fun. And the tournament's going to be great no matter what.
Absolutely. I agree with you guys. I think as of now, you win the natty right now. It's a natty. You take it. But yeah, I think if we have a huge outbreak or anything like that, or even a few teams in the tournament, especially the bigger name teams, if something happens, then that's all anybody's going to remember about this March, unfortunately, which even with that going on, like you said, Michael, everybody's playing under the same circumstances. So I'm not sure that it should go down that way, but it probably will.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole asterisk thing. Now, little Georgia Tech action. Yeah, we're getting some Illinois and Georgia Tech. I like that. Now, who do you guys have first round? Who's on upset watch? Maybe a 13 or a 14, a 12. 12s love to win in the first round. So who do you guys have on upset watch in the first round?
Michael, I don't know if you'll like this, but I think Virginia could lose in the first round.
Yep.
I've seen, and Erik, I know you're probably going to agree with this one. You saw Ohio months and months ago at the beginning of the year, and that team can play. They got guys that can really score, and they went head and shoulders with Illinois. I know that was months ago. Looking down the line, I'm not going to predict this, but I think Grand Canyon competes with Iowa. I really do. Yep. I really think they do. And if Iowa is not making shots, I think it could be scary time for Fran McCaffrey and his guys. I think Iowa will win, but I think there's an opportunity there. Going down the bracket here, I don't see a lot. I mean, obviously we talked a little bit about Greensboro. They're a team I think could get hot. Other than that, if I look over on the other side, I wouldn't call Rutgers over Clemson an upset, because that's kind of two teams that I think are pretty even. Looking up in the other side, I don't see a big pop out one outside of, I think Ohio could beat Virginia. I really do. Erik, Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on Ohio. They're just good. I mean, they just blew through the MAC. The other one that and this is more about Purdue than it is about North Texas, but I'm not a Purdue believer. Like, they just don't really do it for me. They're solid. They win games, but North Texas is a team that could get hot and pull off an upset. There's always one that you never pay any mind to. Like, when you're filling out your bracket, you just blow through, this game's easy, and you just blow through it every time. That's the game that's going to get you. Certainly, I could see Colgate beating Arkansas. If Moses Moody has an off game and Colgate can score the way that they've shown us that they can score, then Arkansas could be in trouble as well.
What do you think of Utah State and Texas Tech?
Yeah, Texas Tech is a team that kind of plays down to their opponents, very frequently. And if you haven't seen Utah State play, they got a kid named Niemis Keita who is just, he's a beast. He's a grown man in the post, and he could really give Santos Silva some problems in the paint.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at that one as well, just because I've seen both sides of Texas Tech. I've seen, I've really seen them struggle, and I've really seen them pretty good. I mean, I don't think it's as good as some of our, previous Texas Tech teams. They're a tournament team, but I'm not super convinced of Texas Tech. So that's just one to watch for me.
Yeah, I think
that'll be a great matchup.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
No, I was just going to say, what it really comes down for me is how Terrence Shannon plays. When he plays well, Texas Tech is very difficult to beat. And he's been a little bit inconsistent late in the season, but if he plays well, Texas Tech is very difficult to beat. Mac McClung has proven that he can play the point guard position. So if those two guys play well and they can get, if Santos Silva can stay out of foul trouble, Kyler Edwards hits some shots, then Texas Tech can be a difficult out.
I agree. I think you could watch that matchup. I think my favorite first round upset possibility, I think Georgetown, I think they put one on Colorado and sneak into the second round at the 12-5. And then also, I'd never thought about this, but the thought of it makes me happy. And Rodney mentioned it. And I would love to see Fran McCaffrey's face late in the game. If it was close with Grand Canyon, as an Illinois fan, I just want to see his whiny face just standing over there on the sidelines, just whining it up. So that way, as an Illinois fan, I would love that. But it's that obviously Grand Canyon would have to really come to play ball. They'd have to figure out what the heck to do with Luka Garza. But really watch that Georgetown game. I think Georgetown's going to sneak out of the first round at least and catch a second round matchup. So
I did a show with Erik Haslam a couple weeks ago, and he threw out the fact that Fran McCaffrey has, I think, been to the tournament like 20 times, 23 times, and he's never made it out of the first weekend. And I think it's 14 times in 23 years that he's gone to the tournament since he's been a coach, and has never made it past the first weekend.
Yikes.
That is a yikes. Here we've got some user questions, some commenters on Facebook. Who is the 13 to 16 seed most likely to win in round one? 13 to 16.
13.
That's tough. They've got some tough matchups this year.
I mean,
a lot of times.
I mean, let's not talk about Eastern Washington, but I mean, there's an opportunity there. I mean, if you want to talk about a team that really shows that they struggle, is the Jayhawks. I mean, they go through stretches where they can't score. And so, Eastern Washington is a team I think could give them a scare. I mean, we've seen Bill Self's team struggle early. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility there. Especially if there's some COVID news. If David McCormick ends up not, I mean, I don't know. Is he going to play? I know he's not a massive part of the team, but he's a big guy in the middle that clogs up the lane. If they don't have him, that's a big loss. And I think it's certainly a team that is ripe for possible upset. So I think I would probably go there. I don't think Cleveland State or Iona or Oral Roberts. And I mentioned Grand Canyon. I think they are a team that possibly, if we're guessing one of these 14 through 16s or 13 through 16s, and then of course, the 13 seed Ohio would probably be my top choice. I mean, come on. I don't think any of these 16 teams are going to win. We've seen it once, but I don't think we're going to see it in 2021. But we've seen crazier things happen. So who knows?
Yeah, for me, I guess if I'm going to dig real deep, Morehead State as a 14 seed playing against West Virginia, it's not outside the realm of possibilities. You're talking about a team that won 23 games this year. Mm-hmm. And they didn't really play Cupcake City. Now, they didn't win a lot of these games, but this is a team that played Kentucky. They played Richmond. They played Ohio State. They played Clemson. They beat Belmont twice. This team can play. So, they're not great on offense. They're decent on defense. But, if they don't turn the ball over, which is obviously difficult against West Virginia, and they luck out and, maybe Miles McBride has an off game shooting or Derek Culver gets into some foul trouble, then, West Virginia could find themselves in a dogfight.
Absolutely. And I think I would take from 13 to 16. I like the Ohio matchup. Like you said, I've seen that firsthand against Illinois. That was a hell of a ball game. And they have a bona fide superstar, in my opinion. So, and then North Texas, and Michael put the nail on the head earlier with it's more about Purdue than it is about North Texas. But this is, if you're really shooting for the stars, if you're going to make a big bet, say, or something, and you're really looking to pay off, and it pains me to say this, but number 16 Drexel beating my Illinois. And that is because I'm an Illinois fan, and I saw us play early in the season a few times. And when we don't play well, man, we do not play well. I mean, we play down to our opponents sometimes, and we play way down to our opponents sometimes. And any team scares me with Illinois. And that may just be PTSD from a lifetime of this, but they scare me. Every team that plays Illinois scares me, simply because this isn't the 2005 season where we go perfect and then get beat by Ohio State in the last game of the regular season, which was devastating. By the way, I had flashbacks of that all day today. That's all I could think about was the last game of 2005 ruining the undefeated season. But I've really seen us play some games this year where we looked like a high school team kicking the basketball around. Yep. We turned the ball over too much. And if the turnovers get out of hand, that's where you could, see something like that. But, these 16s they're pretty rough this year. The ones are pretty tough. The 16s are rough. So we may not see it, but the scariest one, I think, would be my own Fighting Illini. So.
No chance, Erik. Just no chance.
It's
I know we talk a lot of betting. Illinois is a 22.5-point favorite in that game. No way it's happening. And I think Illinois wins easily. I mean, Illinois is playing better than about anybody in the country outside of probably Gonzaga. I mean, because you can't necessarily say anybody's playing better at Gonzaga because they haven't lost, but Illinois is playing just as well or better than anybody in the country. I just don't see it happening. I mean, you saw these kids these last 3 games for Illinois, and that's kind of been my thing on Illinois is how excited, how enthusiastic they look at playing basketball. I mean, they're there to enjoy the game. They love winning. Brad Underwood's brought a culture there that I think is, let's win together. And, they're not too far down the road. They've already, they're packed for a whole month. I don't know, man. I just don't see it happening. Now, obviously, second round game, I think could be a little interesting. I don't think they lose in that one either, but no way. Just calm down a little bit, Erik. Calm down.
All right.
It would be nice to see in that second round. I don't think, unfortunately, that my guys get past the first round in Georgia Tech. Loyola Chicago just plays fantastic defense. They're elite defensively. But the good thing for Loyola going in the second round is who doesn't want to watch Krutwig and Coburn go at it in the paint in that second round game?
Man.
Just 2 monster human beings to be in the paint together. That's going to be a fun one to watch.
Just 90s, straight 90s style basketball in the paint in that game, definitely. All right, and I just saw a question pop up. Which number 1 seed has the toughest road? Do you think it's Illinois, or do you think it's one of the other number 1 seeds that has the toughest road to the Final Four?
I'm going to say yes to Illinois. Although Baylor's got kind of a tough road too. Baylor could really struggle with North Carolina.
Yes.
North Carolina is huge on the front court, and Walker Kessler is getting better every day. And now they got Garrison Brooks back. Mark Vital is obviously very good, but he can't do it all against all four of those guys. And for North Carolina, it really comes down to how well Caleb Love plays, and if Kerwin Walton can give them any kind of threat from the outside. Obviously, Baylor's fantastic defensively. You got those three big scorers in Teague, Mitchell, and Butler. It's going to be a size deal with if they match up against North Carolina, and then if they get past, they get out there. We've talked about Purdue, which that's just a thing for me. They don't really impress me, but they continue to win. Then you get Texas Tech in there, you got Arkansas in there, which Arkansas as a 3, I thought they were kind of closer to a 2, but Virginia Tech as a 10. That's a damn good 10 seed right there. I mean, they can play with anybody. And then of course you got Ohio State at the bottom, but Illinois got some tests. Tennessee's obviously a good team. Oklahoma State's a good team. We've talked about San Diego State, West Virginia. I think Rutgers, they don't perform well all the time, but they are a very talented team. And, we've seen what Houston can do all season. So I think Illinois and Baylor have the two toughest roads as far as the number 1 seeds go.
Yeah, I'll agree on Baylor. I think North Carolina is a team you don't really want to play. I know they've struggled. They're an 8 seed, but it's still the Tar Heels. It's still Roy Williams. I mean, there's something to be said for that. And that second round matchup will be a good one. Now, I don't think Gonzaga has the toughest, but that Oklahoma/Missouri. I mean, I think Missouri, and Eric, I know you know this. Missouri can play a little bit.
Yeah.
They're talented. They're athletic. They're talented and athletic. I think, obviously they make shots and I don't know as if they can necessarily run up and down the floor with Gonzaga, but
no,
I don't know. I mean, let's say Gonzaga misses a few shots here and there. Missouri's on fire. I think it could be interesting, but I'll go with Baylor. Baylor is the toughest number 1 seed for me with that North Carolina matchup in the second round. I don't like that if I'm Scott Drew.
And don't forget, Oklahoma for a while in early, mid to late January looked like one of the best teams in the nation. Yeah. They were a top 12 team. I mean, they took down Kansas, Texas, Alabama, West Virginia twice. I mean, that team can play, and then they went right into the garbage. But I mean, if they're right, they can play.
Yeah, and
that's kind of how I felt about Missouri in the middle of December to the middle of January. They were really overplaying. Missouri just feels like one of those teams that if they can make it out of the first round and get hot, and Gonzaga has one off night, maybe they're one of those Cinderella teams, But I would say not just to be different, but for different reasons. I would say Michigan in the easiest region has the toughest road because they're banged up. And to me, they played their worst basketball of the season here in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. So, and the region itself may be the easiest region of the floor, but Michigan just has not played well as of late, and Livers is just that's a huge piece for them missing. So, but everything you guys said on Baylor and Illinois as far as the toughness of the matchups and those corners of the bracket, it's never an easy road for any of the number 1 seeds. There's always somebody that gives them a fit. Whether it's in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, they'll have a fit with somebody. Somebody's gonna make it a game with all the 1 seeds at some point. So we'll just have to see.
We've seen it before where the team that is obviously the best team in the nation, and the first one that comes to my mind is actually Rodney's guys. When Drew Gooden was at Kansas, that team came out and struggled horribly in the first round against Holy Cross. And so, I mean, nobody is immune to a bad shooting night. You miss the first couple shots, and your confidence gets a little shook. Ultimately, I don't think Gonzaga is going to lose to a 16. I don't think they're going to lose at all. I think they're going to win the title. But it's not unheard of. That Kansas team was loaded, and they still struggled in the first round, whether it's nerves or just an off night. Everybody's prone to an off night every now and then. So, just because Gonzaga is really good doesn't mean they can't lose.
Right.
Yeah, look at Virginia a couple of years ago. Nobody saw that coming at all. So, all right, guys, we're going to take one more question, and that's going to be a very simple one. Which team is going to shock the nation? Who's going to win it all, guys? Who's your pick right now? If you just had to pick one, actually, you know what? Let's make it a little spicy. Let's pick the Final Four and your champion. Let's see who you guys have. Final Four and champion. Who you got, Rodney?
Oh, I get to go first.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Put you on the spot.
I guess I don't mind Alabama. I really don't mind Alabama. Okay. I mean, I don't know as if they're going to win the national champion. So I haven't went all the way across my bracket yet. I haven't done it yet. So I'll throw some names out there, but I don't know as if that's going to be my 100% picks by the time Thursday starts. I'll start in the West. And I'll take Gonzaga, and I'll take them playing my Jayhawks in the Elite Eight. And Gonzaga will run them out of the gym. It won't even be funny. So I'll take Gonzaga in that region. I'll go down the East, and I'm going to go with Alabama. I'm going with Alabama over Iona, over UConn, Maryland, probably then possibly over Texas. And I don't know if Michigan gets the Elite Eight or not, or if that's Florida State or whoever it is. But I'll take Alabama there. I'll go over to the South. And I don't know who I like in the South. I just don't know who I like in the South. I want to like Baylor.
Yep.
But I really think North Carolina could beat them in that second round game. I went with Alabama. Do I think 2 SEC schools with Arkansas? Not sure. I mean, I saw Ohio State lose 4 straight here at the beginning of the month, end of February. I don't see Matt Painter and Purdue getting to the Final Four. I know Michael mentioned that, all they're doing is winning. I get that. Maybe Jay Wright and Villanova. I know they just lost, but I don't think a loss in the conference tournament's a bad thing.
No. Especially when you're injured.
Yeah. You know exactly. What? Here's what I'm going to do. North Carolina.
Bold.
North Carolina. It's Roy Williams.
That is bold. I like it though. I like the boldness.
And then I go to the Midwest, and if I don't say Illinois, I probably like America's Central Illinois' most wanted man. So I'll take Illinois. Illinois, North Carolina, Final Four, and they bring Sean May back.
Oh God! Can we not? Did we have to do that? That was uncalled for, unnecessary.
And then Alabama shocks Gonzaga, and it's Alabama and Illinois. And I'll take Alabama. I got Alabama win it all.
Oh man, Bama wins it. Bama wins it all. Okay, I like it. Bama wins it all.
It's on you.
What do you got, Michael?
I'm talking myself into North Carolina beating Baylor as we sit here. Like the matchup is so it favors the Tar Heels. I mean, it really does. Baylor just cannot hang with them in the front court, but in the back court, Baylor's a juggernaut. And I'm not sure that Carolina has the horses in the backcourt. They need Walton, Love, and RJ Davis has disappeared lately. They need those guys to all play very well if they're going to hang with Baylor. Ultimately, I think Carolina's going to beat Baylor in the second round. And I think Ohio State actually comes out of that region, out of the South. So I like Ohio State out of the South. I don't see anybody really competing with Illinois in the Midwest. I think they're going to be able to run through that bracket fairly easily. Ohio State could give them some trouble, but that's if Ohio State can get past Tennessee. So, Houston obviously has played tremendously well this year, especially when you consider the fact that Caleb Mills left. But I don't think that they will be able to handle Illinois. Illinois is playing, best basketball maybe in the country right now, apart from Gonzaga. I also like Alabama in the East to come out of there. That bracket is just weak. I mean, Mark Turgeon, you're going to trust Mark Turgeon in the second round and knock off Alabama? No way. Texas is tremendously inconsistent, though they're tremendously talented. Florida State, I don't know if they get past Greensboro. This bracket, and Michigan with Livers out is just not as good. So, I think this sets up perfectly for Alabama to make it to the Final Four. And then, I got Gonzaga coming out of the West, and I got them really blowing through this bracket, and I think they're going to win the national title.
Well, I'm with you on the West. I don't think there's anybody that's gonna put up a fight against Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga's schedule, yes, as always, a little weaker than everybody else's, but they were still blowing teams out by 30, and I mean they just look better. They just look like the best team in the nation every time you watched them. So I think Gonzaga blows through the West. In the South, I think the South could get really interesting. I think it comes down to Ohio State and Baylor. And I pray that Ohio State wins because I don't want to have Illinois face Baylor again because Baylor's defense scares the crap out of me. It's scary. Whenever we played Baylor early in the year, they beat us up. They beat us right off the floor. We couldn't score. We couldn't get in rhythm. Kofi couldn't move down low. I don't want to see that Baylor defense again. So I'm going to go with Ohio State coming out of the South, Gonzaga coming out of the West. I've got a massive upset in the East. Florida State mows through Michigan, beats Alabama. Florida State comes out of the East. And then I've got to take my Illini out of the Midwest. And hopefully I'll bet with my heart here, my Illini get the first national championship of my lifetime. Hopefully, I just want to see one. I mean, I honestly just don't want to see us. If we just make it to a national championship and don't get completely blown off the floor like we did in 2005. I know. It's we just in 2005 it was so like it was never a game. When we made it to the final, I was just like the entire game. I was like, "Yep, North Carolina's dominating us. We're going to lose."
2004 that title game, and I crawled in a cave for a week because, I mean, UConn. I think the final score was 9 or 11, and it really wasn't that close. Really, I mean, UConn blew them out of the water, and that was a game. I'm going into it. They beat them in the preseason 19 in Madison Square Garden that year. And, that was the Emeka Okafor team, which Okafor almost went to Georgia Tech as well, which just, salt in the wound there. Yeah. But I don't think Florida State coming out of that region is much of a stretch. I mean, Leonard Hamilton at age, whatever it is, 70, 71, seems to be hitting his stride as a coach right now. And he's had some of his best performances in just the last few years. I mean, they're a team that knocked off a very good Gonzaga team a couple of years ago. So, I don't think that's a stretch at all, especially given the way that East bracket is set up. I don't think that's a stretch.
And that brings me to the point, Michael. Leonard Hamilton is literally like double our age, and he could literally destroy all three of us at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. He's a machine.
Yeah, he's a complete monster and a great head coach.
Yes, underrated. I mean, he's created that program. That program was nothing. And I mean, he's made that program what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys coming on tonight, chatting some selection show. It was a lot of fun. If you guys want to catch Rodney's stuff, he is all over noobsports.com. You can catch his free betting picks every day on Noob Sports. He's dropping betting picks every day for you guys. Mychal at accbasketballreport.com. That's his site. He's keeping you up to date on all the ACC stuff. He does a ton of stuff for the Sports 2.0 Network, does a lot of DFS for us. So Sports 2.0 Network, guys, check it out. ACC Basketball Report, check it out. Noob Sports, check it out. Thank you guys, as always, for coming, and we will see you next time on the Sports 2.0 show. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.